Today we're going to be looking at king and pawn versus king endgames. And in particular, if you look at diagrams like the following, if you ever get confused with whether it's a win, a loss, a draw based on who's to move, I've come up with some mental and visual shortcuts to help you understand how to never forget this again. So if this is you, stick around and take a look. We have 4 diagrams we're going to look at. So the first diagram here is a scenario where it's white to move. We're going to look at 4 diagrams from both perspectives. So if this is white to move, the question to you is, what's the outcome? And so the real quick mental shortcut is, so we'll get to the exception in a moment, but in general, if you look at the 2 squares in front of the pawn, I've highlighted them in green. If you can get, if you're the defending side, if you can get your king onto one of these 2 squares, then with correct play, this is a draw under all circumstances. So in this case, white would be out of luck, assuming black knew how to play the correct moves. So if it was white to move in this case, white would do something like this. Black would go back. And this would be the general pattern that the players would play. And as you can see, by the time we get to the end, we end up in a stalemate. So it was a draw. And that all started based on the fact that the king was in one of these 2 squares. So let's take a look at the exact same scenario. I'm going to switch over to the same board with black to move first. And so if you're the defending side of this, the rule is you always just go backwards in front of the pawn that you're trying to defend. The white king moves forward, because if they were to just push the pawn, the king would take it. And then the black king shifts to the side in front of the king. And so we continue that basic pattern like this. And by the time we get to the end, again, we are in a stalemate situation. So neither one of those worked in favor of white, that is. Both drew because we were in a situation where the black king made it to one of the 2 key squares in front of the pawn. Let's take a look at the second position I set up. And this is with white to move. So unlike the first one, which looked like this one, we're going to do this. But again, we have 2 squares in front of the pawn, and the black king has managed to make it to one of those 2 squares. And again, the same rules will apply. So if it's white to move, white pushes the pawn, black backs up, and guess I messed that one up. White king should go there, black king goes there, pawn pushes, king moves back, and again we're in stalemate. So if you ignore my misclick with the mouse, we'll check again from black's perspective. If it's black who moves first, and as we see again, stalemate. So what we've noticed so far is regardless of who is to move, both this first position and this second position, both are a draw, so long as the defending king reached one of the 2 key squares. And we're going to look at one more board configuration that is the same type of scenario here. So again, the king managed to make it to one of the 2 defending squares, and in this case it's white to move. And there's your stalemate. And likewise, if it's black to move, doesn't make any difference. King goes up. King goes back. And again, we're in stalemate. So we've shown that all three of these scenarios, this one, and this one, all end in a draw or stalemate, regardless of whose turn it is to move. And there's only one exception to being able to just simply remember these two key squares in front of the pawn. And that is this one. And I like to think of this as if you have reached the final three ranks of the board for whichever side is applicable, and you're in this typical orientation, these squares, they don't actually matter anymore. What matters is who has the opposition. So which king has opposition? And how I like to think of it is the king with the opposition will get their desired outcome. So if it was white's turn to move, white is striving to promote their pawn, right? And likewise, if it is black's turn to move, black is striving to get a draw. So the king with the opposition will get their desired outcome. So in this case, I set this board up for it to be white to move, which implies it is the black king with opposition right now. So given that, the black king is going to get their desired outcome, which is a draw in this case. So the white king would push, or the white side would push the pawn, and we would end up in a stalemate right here. And likewise, let's switch to the scenario where it's black to move, which means the white king has the opposition. So the white king is going to get what they are hoping for, which is a victory in this game. And in this case, the black king can't go back that way because the pawn covers it. And now we get our promotion once this king moves and the pawn promotes. There we go. So I hope this clarifies how the opposition plays a role only in the final three ranks. Otherwise, the key thing to think about is those two key squares in front of the pawn for the aggressor side. If you enjoyed this video or learned something, please like and subscribe. I appreciate it. Thank you.